Serious, married couples, what advice would you give to young couples? Drub said. Sit down once a month and look over your finances. Always have a master plan on what both of you want, then work together towards that. Communication is everything. Laugh at yourself more than you laugh at them. Fight fair. Both of you families are batshit crazy, don't hold that against each other. Little love gestures go a long ways. Hold hands in public. Save money and create wealth. Head scratches and back rubs have done more for my love life than nice dinners, new cars and flowers. Know each other's love language. The rule of 5, every 5 weeks, go out on a nice date, every 5 months, take a weekend vacation, and every 5 years, take a 2-week vacation. Compliment them when they look amazing. J. Bleasy 1979 said, my wife and I do a monthly budget date night. Initially it was just to make sure we were on the same page and saving enough for the future. However, as life got busier, we found that these were one of the few nights where we found time to talk about deep topics, dreams, future, retirement, etc. When you're raising kids and working, it's very easy to neglect these important conversations that really bond you. Drub said, 100%, as a young couple, and maybe as an old couple, there is nothing more powerful than seeing you are a part of something where both of you are pulling on the same end of the rope. It's not a contest of who got what and who's owed something. Big dreams get to happen when the train gets placed on the tracks. Knowing how to get out from under debt is huge. Live small, like really small, get to debt-free, then save and invest. That's a hard sell for many, but getting past that maturation point is huge. Both of my boys have been in the stock market since they were in middle school. Every birthday gift, summer job, etc. money has gone into their accounts. By the time they are 30, they'll have nice nest eggs for house down payments. 20 years of saving, investing, and leaving it the hell alone may equal them being able to retire early. But it all starts with a little knowledge, patience and persistence. All of those lessons were learned by my wife and I sitting across a messy kitchen table, paying the bills. LJR 55555 said, making sure you marry someone with a similar outlook is important too. My husband and I were both committed to being debt-free before we married, and we agreed that mortgage debt would be paid off as quickly as practical. I couldn't imagine the stress of trying to convert someone who didn't mind carrying credit card debt to my way of thinking. So many friends seemed to think their spouse would magically become someone else after the wedding ceremony, and were seriously disappointed when the transformation failed to materialize. Beholder 84 said, don't stress over the little shit. You'll get annoyed at things you didn't think possible, like how they organize themselves, how they load the dishwasher, difference in opinions for trivial things. Let that shit go. Think about what truly matters to you before you start an argument over your misplaced toothbrush, the color of paint you use in the living room, or what's going on in the garage at 10 p.m. with all the swearing. This will differ a bit, but this is coming from a man that's been married for 14 years with 2 kids. LJR 55555 said, a lot of parenting groups call this picking your hill to die on. You can be super into making sure everything is done your version of right. You won't be happy, and I doubt you'll succeed, and, if you do, no one else is happy. So pick a small number of things that really matter to you to stress over. Then set everyone up for success on those things. Setting everyone up for success may just mean conveying how important it is that a certain thing happen a certain way. It may mean adjusting your expectations slightly downward. But it may involve more work on your part. Maybe you pick how the dishwasher is loaded. Sounds silly to me, but I'm not you. Be prepared to own it. Divide out chores so you're loading the dishwasher rather than spending every day correcting someone else's approach. Your partner puts away clean dishes. Or you own dishes and they own laundry. Guthman said, this. To set everyone up for success is key. We call it staying on our side of the street. For instance, I do all the laundry because I don't mind, and her process for it drives me a bit crazy. She cleans the bathrooms because she doesn't mind, and my process for it drives her a bit crazy. I stay only side and she stays on hers. When we flip, she does laundry or I clean the bathroom. We don't set the results against her personal expectations, but shared expectations. In other instances we both play utility. If she's cooking and making a mess, I jump in to help clean up. If I'm mowing the lawn, she'll jump in to pick up toys or toss branches. Some days I lead and some days I follow. Works well with the kids, too. Chadbert 1977 said, I got annoyed that my wife never unloaded the dishwasher during the day. So my solution is that I unload it in the morning while I am making coffee. That way, I can reload it in the evening and get it running so I can unload it again the next morning. Instead of getting into a pointless argument, I found a way to get the job done. I do plenty of things that annoy my wife that she has to find workaround for. This is the same, just me finding my own workaround. Beholder 84 said, communication. Make sure you both have an understanding to communicate your feelings, intents, plans etc. so you're both on the same page about things. When you're married, you're part of a team emo, and if either of you are lacking in the communication department, it makes for a bad combination. Don't be afraid to talk about things that might feel uncomfortable. The more you do it, the easier it can get. Don't internalize things. Don't leave your partner guessing on how you're feeling and why. That way, if there's a problem, you work together to fix it. The Potterhead Hobbit said, I would add that in order to achieve optimal communication, make sure to define your terms and ensure that your partner is actually hearing what you intended to say. My husband and I had so many bad arguments in the first year, many of which ended once we realized we were arguing the same point from different perspectives. Vocabulary. Don't assume that your partner understands what you're saying. Verify until you're sure. Mirroring language is a huge help here. So what I hear you saying is? Binka Malagat said, here are two of the best advices that one of our Ninnings, primary sponsors, said when we announced our plan to marry. 1. Marry when you are both ready, and 2. You should be able to accept every fault and weakness in your partner's being. If you do, then you're ready to get married. 2 is very good advice emo, since I've seen a lot of failed marriages wherein both parties are either completely incompatible or have issues with each other's personalities, habits, and lifestyle choice, and they expect marriage will either fix that or the things that each hate will somehow improve. Expect that nothing that drastic will change with your partner after marriage. She is a slob and doesn't wash properly? She'll still be a slob the next hour after you said your vows. He keeps getting on your nerves by being a smartass and a sarcastic sob. Guess what? He'll still be that way the next morning after the reception. Thelamong said, we have been married for 13 years, together for 15. Spend quality time together. Shut off your phones and go for a walk. Cook a meal together. Find a hobby you both enjoy. Heck, you can have a lot of fun just doing household chores together. If you don't spend time together, you are going to drift apart. I was severely burned in a brush fire 5 years ago, and was diagnosed with brain cancer a year later. My burn broke me. I fell into a terrible pit of depression. I spent most of the next year lying on the couch pissed off at the world. All of my relationships deteriorated in that time just because I separate myself from everything. But our marriage suffered the most. Unfortunately, my diagnosis made things even worse. My prognosis was quite grim. People in my position live for an average of 37 weeks. I have seen other people go through similar things. One of two things usually happens. It will draw them closer together, or one or both people will use destructive coping mechanisms to help cope with the fear and pain. Once we realized what was happening, we started coming closer together again. When we were newly married, we spent a lot of time fishing. Just the two of us on a riverbank sitting on buckets trying to catch fish. The beauty of time like that is there is nothing to distract you from each other. It gives you a lot of time to just talk and get to know each other better. I've had 2 cancer recurrences that looked like it was the beginning of my end. I just started a new treatment that is working very well. We've been able to get back fishing a lot this summer, sometimes just the 2 of us, and sometimes we take the kids along too. Manbeard 1000 said, kindness. Don't be short, rude, and proud. You have to live with this person the rest of your life. Always be kind. Forgive. You aren't immune to making any of the same mistakes. You're not as perfect as you think you are. Don't dwell on the negative in one another. This is a bad mental path to get on. You are both imperfect. Compliment one another on your strengths. And help one another with weaknesses. Be committed. Life will change. You both will change. There is security in commitment. There is trust when you feel secure. Just a few things. 12 years, 3 kids, still learning. Corton 5 said, I'm not the original commenter, but here's me. Isn't that the point? Change is the only guarantee, so are you willing to communicate about and work through those changes in yourself and your girlfriend? GF. You'll never know everything you want, and it is highly unlikely that your GF will be everything you want at any time forever, and you may not be everything she wants all the time either. Capital M. Why spouse and I to trust each other to not go totally off the deep end, so, barring that, I think as long as we're honest with one another we can get through anything. So far we've gotten through weight gain, loss, changing homes, deaths in the family, mental health ebbs and flows. We're both very different than we were when we got hitched, and I find that we're closer because of the experiences we've shared. I want to change for the better because of her. The more you commit to something, the more you get out of it. If you enter something thinking you can leave later, you treat the relationship differently and make different choices. Don't get married because you feel obligated or because some person like me on the internet, but love is a risk, and I promise you'll miss out if you don't do what you can to make the most of it. I talked to your GF about these concerns. Your relationship will be better for it. You'll be alright. Otherwise, Windows said. Alternatively, learn that you don't have to do everything together. My wife likes movies, I don't. She goes to them with friends instead of me. I like basketball and footy and cricket and she doesn't, so if I go to games I go with my brother-in-law, not her. But she knows the names of the star players of my favorite teams, and occasionally snuggles with me on the couch while I'm watching. And I watched gay Chinese magic swordsman dramas with her in no way more about fabric than you would believe. Supporting doesn't have to mean involving. LJR 55555 said. My great-grandmother had an awful time when her husband died. The normal emotional stuff, of course, but she'd never managed an account or seen a bill in her life. They had plenty of money, fortunately, but she had to figure out where the accounts were held, which required going through the old mail and some filing cabinets to find old statements. With online banking, that could be a bigger challenge today, how to access them, or what stocks and bonds are. I remember teaching her how to write a check and how to keep track of the balance. Not something you want to deal with while you are grieving. LOL said always remember to work on yourself, as your insecurities can easily form into blame towards your partner. They're not doing enough, they're not making me feel special enough. When you're insecure and not doing anything to fix it, it won't matter what your partner does. So always work on yourself, invite your partner to join you in your goals, and the positivity from your efforts will strengthen your relationship with your partner and how you see yourself. Corporate Cleavage said, sometimes it's better to have two separate things than to compromise on one thing. This can be anything from stocking two different types of toilet paper, having separate electronics, or even sleeping in separate bedrooms. Some people just love telling happy couples how they're going to be unhappy one day. They'll tell you wait until you've been together X years, you move in together, you get married, you have kids, your kids leave the nest, etc. Don't let these people influence you. Your relationship doesn't have to conform to anyone's standards but your own. You don't have to get married, have kids, wear wedding rings, be monogamous. As long as you both enthusiastically agree to whatever arrangement you have, change your last name, live together, sleep in the same bed, both have a career, etc. As long as you're both happy, it can look however you want it to. Yankee Doodle Doggy said, to generalize this, adjust your marriage to what works best for you, regardless of the norm. Lots of people sleep in different beds not because anything is wrong but because that is how they work best as a couple, whether sleep schedules, snoring, whatever makes sleeping together tough. Also, if there is a repeated issue or fight, step back and see how to avoid it. A friend is not a planner. But when we go somewhere and it's not open or full or whatever, she doesn't have a backup plan and it starts a fight to her hubs every time. They could avoid these fights by simply making a quick backup plan before leaving. Milliger0505 said, if you want to survive more than a decade in a marriage, be prepared to listen to your spouse. Not just to let them speak, but listen, engage. You want to be heard, so hear the other. If when negative emotions get too intense, don't jump to blame the spouse. It's hard. Try to find ways to interrupt the feeding of negativity from each other's cycle. Take a 5-minute break, claim you need a bio break if nothing else. The physical and temporal distancing will help folk calm down. Also, as soon as you calm down, hug the other person and provide some sort of positive physical contact. Goes without saying, Keep reinforcing positives and make positive statements frequently. Everybody wants to be loved, and you have to be there for each other. Oh, one last thing, don't ever take someone else's side against your spouse in public. If they are in the wrong, can happen often, you must find ways to correct that behavior discreetly. If that really doesn't work, because people are obstinate, try to create a distraction, find an excuse, then talk to your spouse in private. Disowned by mother said, communication, understanding and empathy. Communication is a foundational cornerstone of a relationship. If that isn't there and either of you don't feel you can speak to each other freely, at some point the relationship will break down. Understanding. You won't always see eye to eye or have the same interest level in something, and that is okay. My wife loves to go hiking. I fucking hate it. I don't hate the outdoors, I just hate driving an hour to get somewhere to walk uncomfortably to a spot that she likes so she can take 1,000 pictures while I am bored out of my mind. I do it because she likes it and she likes that I come along. She is willing to go to things and do things with me that she has zero interest in. It's okay to not like the same things, but that doesn't mean you can't show some interest. I hate hiking, but there have been a couple hikes and walks that ended up being amazing and awesome that I wouldn't have otherwise known about. Disowned by mother said, empathy. You need to be able to at least try and see things from their point of view. One day after we had moved in together, my wife had been out all day and wasn't due back until long after I had been done with work. I figured it was perfect because I could watch an episode of one of my shows while I waited, then when she got home we could go get some food. She walks in the door with about 10 minutes left in my show. We say hi and I hear her toss her keys down and then walk into the kitchen. After a few minutes I hear her moving around upstairs. I figured she had gone to the bathroom and was upstairs getting ready to go out to dinner. After a half hour I went upstairs and all the lights were out. Maybe she was just exhausted and wanted to sleep, no big deal. Here is what she saw. After being out in the sun all day and driving for an hour and a half to get home, she comes in and I barely acknowledge her, and even when she went upstairs I didn't come look for her for a half hour. She was pissed off. We both saw the same thing, and we saw it differently. That shit will happen a lot. Understanding that you both have different viewpoints will go a long way to avoiding blow-ups and misunderstandings and arguments. RX Pulse said, NGL, people laugh at me when I talk about financial responsibility. Understanding is something I look for. I think people are just so fooled by the concept of a happily ever after, a relationship where you can get through everything together through the power of love. This isn't a fairy tale. It's real life. You know what love can't really protect you from? The IRS when they come to rip us your assets and now you're broke on your ass. Understanding each other's financial goals, habits, behavior can save so many arguments and problems from ever happening. Substantial and 7406 said, my mom pretty much got whiplash when I told her I was fixing my credit before my husband and I got married and that we were both signing a prenup. It isn't about trust or love, it's about life. I had a clerical error that locked me out of checking my credit and I was being jerked around for literal years before I made it up the line to high enough management that was authorized to help me. The fact that no one could tell me my credit score because I couldn't verify my security questions made me think something fishy was going on. I thought maybe someone tried to steal my identity or something. Why would I marry someone before figuring that out? Glass Half Smashed said, different angle to most here. But don't assume a long-term relationship means you need to get married, or that they're the one. I hit a point of proposing when realizing my life would be infinitely better with than without my other half, and ever since that has guided any disagreements, as no petty disagreement is worth being without than they do make my life better. However, I see some people get engaged and they really don't have that stance. They feel they are settling or taking a leap of faith, or that they've been together too long to not be engaged and kinda know it won't work. Don't let what you think the world expects of you drive any big decisions. Get engaged if you feel a life with that person is better than a life without them with somebody else. Split up if you genuinely don't feel that way. Or just let it glide along and see how things go if you haven't made up your mind. Similarly, if you get engaged and regret it, no matter how scary it is to pull out of an engagement with thousands committed in wedding costs, it's nothing compared to the pain of divorce. Don't even get me started once kids get involved. Planning a wedding may be a good test if you've never truly seen your partner under stress before, if they were slightly holding back while hoping for you to pop the question. Internet is wrong said. Several random ones. Remember when you are mad at your partner, that is normal. You two have linked destinies now. The way I think of it, I'm pissed at myself frequently, so I can't expect to not be pissed at someone I'm close with. It would be sociopathic to not be frustrated with each other, or yourself, from time to time. But treat your partner as you would treat yourself. By that I mean acknowledge the anger but don't dwell on it. Take time to cool off in the moment, then approach your partner as if you were having a monologue to better yourself. Everyone makes mistakes or misjudges or has a lapse in empathy. The goal isn't to undo the anger or mistake it for something being wrong. The goal is to reduce the future anger. You and your partner will change. That's part of the fun. Don't mourn the loss of your younger days, but embrace the novelty of the now. Modern couples have a harder go at it compared to many generations. They are expected to be friends, business partners, lovers, emotional support, family, coaches, co-parents and more. Not many generations ago and people didn't get married expecting all of those things from the other. People used to get married for utility. Love was a fortunate byproduct. With that, know that your partner may fall short on one or many of those things from time to time. I think most people are better off if they don't rely on their partner for 100% of their humanistic needs. Find a group of friends that you hand out occasionally that's just for you. D&D nights, martial arts, painting, whatever. Find a mentor that you can get a third perspective on when you can. Older generations. Internet is wrong said. We're often more close with their extended families or church group or coworkers and could form other social bonds that is good for the human spirit. Modern culture has less readily accessible social circles unless you make an effort to form them. There is a common statistic that old men frequently die shortly after their spouses because they don't have any social connection. In this vein, I think the "I married my best friend" trope can do harm if people misinterpret the implications of it. Edit. I'm even seeing it in this thread. My best friend is my brother. I do not want to have sex with him, or live with him. My wife is amazing and great support and we see eye to eye on finances and lifestyle and many other important things. Neither of those two people will talk philosophy with me, which I love to do, but that doesn't mean they're the wrong person. The key is to realize that they each have roles in my life and sometimes my wife falls short on the storybook optimum partner. But we work great because we both realize this and make each other better for it. I encourage her to pursue her hobbies and am supportive when she needs it. But there are better people to give her advice. Hearing a lecture from your significant other is rarely effective. But we are a team and work to make each other better as it is mutually beneficial to do so. It makes me happy to see her happy, and I want her to trust me as much as I trust her. So I don't talk behind her back in a malicious way, but I can sometimes consult with friends to see what they would do in a situation we have. Those friends may even tell me when I've misjudged the situation. I wouldn't trade it for single life for $1 million, but as with anything in life, there are trade-offs. Fuck Chiefs Raiders said. When getting in arguments, try your best not to cross the line. However, there will be arguments, there will be rough patches, there will be times where you won't want to be in the same room. Choose those arguments wisely and ask yourself before you engage, is it worth it? Sometimes it is, and that's okay. Keep your problems in-house. Everyone is an expert when it comes to relationships, so if you tell people about your problems they will have advice, and at some point if you keep going to those people and just constantly venting about problems, many people will say you need to leave that person. It's none of their business and you're the only person who can make that decision. That being said, marriage truly is a wonderful thing. Having a partner in crime to share your life with, having children, creating a home, doing it both your way is awesome. Sometimes you won't even feel like you're married, you just feel like kids playing house, but you actually have a house with children. Even when money gets to be tight, you're tired and sleep deprived, knowing you have someone to go through it with you no matter what is an amazing feeling. Noodly Off Death said. Get the book The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and both of you should read it. The TLDR is, we all generally communicate in our own personal love language, not necessarily our partner's love language. The book gives both people a framework for having discussions about their personal needs without making the conversation hostile or defensive. It can feel weird and awkward at first, because finding out your partner wants, say, gifts and kind words and you aren't used to showing love like that. But you want them to communicate in your love language, maybe sex. It can feel like a weirdly artificial trade, But knowing that you were both putting in effort to make your partner feel loved is the real value of the system. After years of fighting and poor communication between my wife and I, we went through this, and now I try to help out more around the house so she gets some free time, and she reciprocates with sex, and it's a win-win. Mary Jo 1818 said, "Make sure you are on the same page about family stuff and that you either have good boundaries or integrate well into your partner's family. My Phil and Sil are both addicts and my Mill are their biggest enablers. My husband and I had a day where we sat down and hashed out what our relationship with them going forward would look like. We also extensively discussed what we would and wouldn't feel comfortable with once we have kids. I think it's just generally good to know about their philosophy on things like parenting, if you plan to have kids, financial goals, career goals, knowing what they'd want you to do if they became incapacitated, etc. I think you just generally want to be on the same page about the big things in life."